Hello everyone, this is a lesson on figure drawing and we're going to focus on the outline mainly, and I'm going to give another tutorial on how to shade or even apply colors properly to a figure. First of all, you always have to have a reference if you want to come out with a good figure. And reference can be a reference photo, or you just take any kind of figure that you find in your house. So I've again stolen my son's toys to draw. And when you make a choice on what kind of figure you want to draw, then a front view figure like this one is much easier to draw because it has a lot of symmetry. You can basically imagine a line right in the middle almost, and then it's the same on the left as it is on the right. It has very little texture altogether, and a lot of straight, almost geometrical lines that are really helpful for capturing the proportions. A figure like this is much more difficult, but it also shows a lot more movement and action. But you can see how the whole body is turned and it has the arms in different directions. There's foreshortening in this arm, and the head is even in half profile, so it's much more difficult. When you do draw your figures, don't place them on a piece of paper like I do right here. This is just so that you can see it in the camera, but put them on something that elevates them in front of you. So find a little shoebox or cardboard box and put them in front of you so that you have a view onto the figure straight ahead, and that you do not look down on it, or like I do right now, from below. Then there are 3 tricks that you can always use when you do live drawing. So that means from a source that you can actually look at. And the first trick is to look at the measurements, the outline measurements. So you, for example, you could take the top part here and the side and the bottom and the side as well. Put your figure aside, and then you can already see that you get a rectangle like this. So you can work with this rectangle. This is your figure. This figure would give me a different shape, a much thinner rectangle. And then you can halve this once, twice, and that way you have a rough grid of your figure. You can also do the same on your figure, and then actually take a little felt tip and mark your halfway somewhere where it's visible, and also your halfway down on the figure. It's really difficult to see on this dark figure, but I don't actually need it. So this is just to show you what kind of tricks you can apply to get the proportions of the figure onto your paper correctly. The second trick is to look at negative spaces. So the negative spaces are all the spaces in between. So for example, if you look right there, that would be a negative space. If you look at this shape here, that would be a negative space. If you look at this area right there, that would be a negative space. So if I were to draw this, I would start with the outlines from the top, just roughly sketching that out. You can also actually just dot your way through the figure. so that you just roughly know where things go. So I'm mapping out my hand here, and now I'm going down. It's a little less scary if you map your things out with little dots first. And now I can start looking at my negative space. So my negative space is actually somewhere here, like this. So this would be my negative space, yeah? I can define that a little bit better later, but right now, this is all I need to know how this figure is set up in the lower half. And you have the knee here and the knee here. You can see that they're actually angled like this, yeah? And the upper thigh, like that, almost a circle here. Oops. And then you have the hand here, and here I have another little negative space right there. Yeah, so these are my negative spaces, and on the other side as well. So I already have the figure mapped out without actually having drawn it. That makes everything a lot easier. You can also just work with pencil first. So I've taken an ink pen here so that you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. You don't need to take an ink pen. You can just take a pencil and then erase a little bit if you make mistakes, yeah? So that was the second, actually also already the third trick. The first one was to use a grid. The second one was to use negative spaces, and they're usually somewhat triangles. So I'm putting a little triangle icon here. The third one is to dot your way through the figure before actually drawing it. And the last one is using your eyesight and using that to find relations between things. So you can use the measuring technique where you look along your arm and use the end of a pencil to measure lengths and compare them to each other when you have a big figure that you're looking at. When you're looking at a small figure, you do the same thing. You compare the lengths of items, yeah? So for example, I could compare this one to this one. Is that the same length, yeah? Or when I start drawing, how broad is actually that arm in comparison to the width of the upper body? When you start drawing, you keep your eyes judgment on your drawing the whole time. So this is something that you do the whole time while you're drawing. And it's a good idea to start from the inside and slowly work yourself from the to the outside. So don't start down in the feet and work up, but start in the center and work outwards like this. So here I'm going to start at this little negative space right there, and at this little negative space right there, and I'm going to use the belt to show me what that shape here actually looks like, and it's something like that, yeah? So this was the thigh that I've already kind of roughly mapped out. So I've got the belt here. There's some kind of cloth going in the background. And then I can start going from here outwards. And make sure that you curve your lines properly. We've all learned how to curve the lines to show that the objects are actually round, yeah? So shape your lines according to what you see. So this is actually rounded. And then I have this arm here. And the muscle right there. So you can just draw along while I'm drawing. You can do the hand for the time being, just a little bit like a dotted fist or dotted square. Think of a glove more than single fingers, and that's that little thumb there. So you probably have a different view from where you are right now, looking at this figure than I do. So just focus on the tricks and apply them to your own figure. So, and then you have these little dents down here to show the texture of the cloth. Actually don't really know what kind of figure it is and where it's from, but it's kind of cool. So I go a little bit further like this. So, and then I have the knee here. That's this part. Yeah. And now I'm going to start going out here. That was my negative space, yeah. So that's the inside of the arm, and now I'm comparing where is this in comparison. Here that's like mid chest, and it does something like this because there's this big muscle sitting right there. Oh, now I'm mapping out that head a little bit more. The monster face with the horns coming down like this. And remember, when you're doing the outline like that, you can work with a pencil and don't press hard. Yeah, always just really lightly, so that you can correct things without having to erase. And that's the top. The eye would be somewhere here. Can't see the second eye. And that's the mouth. That's some kind of little decoration on the chest. So it's probably really boring to watch me draw, so you can stop this video anytime you feel that you know what you're doing now and you want to test it for yourself. Then please do so. Just have to remember, use a grid, use the negative spaces, dot your figure, and always look for proportions, like relations to each other. And take it slow. It's much better to take it slow than having to erase 10 times. Look carefully on what you need to do. There's a little negative space right there in that figure. So I'm going to use that as well. And then we've got the knee right here. Taking that down. Big muscles. And these toes I'm just going to look at like that for the time being. Simplify forms before you make them more detailed. Always look at the rough form first, the basic geometrical form that you find behind it. A rectangle, a circle, the knee is a circle, triangles. I have different views on this foot right here, but that's about it. And so now I have got the figure roughly mapped out. Now I can start going in and doing more detail. Now I know where things are in comparison to each other. Check, go back and check whether that actually works out everywhere. I'm going to take that down a little bit. Don't worry when you make corrections. Sometimes having 2, 3, 4 lines in the same area actually makes the figure look more vibrant and alive, so you don't actually have to erase every single line. You also don't have to articulate all the little details completely. Sometimes it's okay to just suggest texture, yeah? So for example, in this area over here, I don't have to do every single line to show the texture that he has around his beard here. I can just put a few lines to suggest that there is the same texture as I've actually already put somewhere else. It usually doesn't look all that good if you articulate all the teeth properly, so I'm just doing a few. That's enough. The rest we'll do with coloring for the next tutorial. We'll put some colors and shading. This is more just about the outline and the texture here, yeah? So now I'm going to go through and correct what I think needs correcting and add some more texture and detail. So we're shaping those lines here properly to show that this is round, yeah? And the knife comes out the other end. This goes down a little bit further. The end of the belt. There we go. So here, even though I've made a straight line initially, I can just go over and curve that a bit more, and that straight line doesn't really matter anymore, yeah? So I'm seeing the inside of the foot a bit more, like that. Maybe that's a bit too muscly here, so I'll take a little bit away. And 4 fingers, remember it's 4, not 5 or 3, usually at least. Some muscle shapes here. Around like that. And here as well. Let's take that all the way through. So this is how you get an outline of a figure, and I'll show you another tutorial on how to create more depth in the figure, more 3D effect through lights and shadows and colors, and how to apply a colored pencil to a figure like this. Okay, so happy drawing, everybody. Bye bye.